Greetings, Arrowhead track athletes and parents. I decided that I should maybe put together a video and make an address because this is the longest I've gone with during the season without being able to talk to our athletes and certainly our parents. I am reporting right now live from my basement. Don't look too closely at the ceiling above me. It's kind of falling apart. But my house is like a lot of your houses right now. My wife is working out of home. My son and daughter are working on coursework. So I am down as far away as I can get in between classes to try and record something to all of you and talk about some of the things that are going on around us. One of the things I wanted to do is start out with something really positive. If you have been following the news at all, you have probably seen that Arrowhead has hired a new head football coach. And our new head football coach, Coach Matt Harris, comes to us from Waukesha North. And he also used to be, up until this year, Waukesha North's head track coach. And as especially our varsity athletes know, Waukesha North had an incredible program last year. They ended up second overall at state. And part of that was, a lot of that was due to Coach Harris's leadership. He will be joining us as a vault coach, and it'll be an interesting transition as obviously we are struggling to get together as a team. But Coach Harris is a great guy, and he's going to fit right in, and I'm extremely excited to have him on board and really excited to have a great connection with our football staff. That means a lot for a high school track team. So we're happy to have him. Can't wait to get him in building. By the time we get back to practices, if we do get into that situation, you'll see Coach Harris out there, and be sure to introduce yourself to him. Next up, I want to talk about in these unique times that we have. I guess now I really am speaking to our athletes. You guys have a tremendous responsibility to what's going on at home. Your parents likely, or not necessarily likely, your parents could be doing a million different things, but there are many parents right now that are doing things like working out of home. And that right now is probably their main priority. You need to give them the space that they need. If it's anything like my wife, when she's working out of home, she's going to need some time to be on work calls where she's not interrupted by kids asking what's for lunch or what's the Netflix passcode, whatever. Make sure that you are making yourself an asset to your family and certainly not dragging down anything that's going on. Help with, now that you've got everybody home, help with cleaning up in the kitchen, help with laundry, help wherever you possibly can. That is the most important thing. And quite possibly maybe even emotional support. We have not been through something like this as a country technically ever. Obviously there's a huge epidemic of the flu in 1918, but the massive shutdowns like this didn't happen exactly until it was a little bit late. Can draw some comparisons to making sacrifices as compared to World War II, but I'm going to talk about that in just a minute here. So number one, family first. Next up, school. Do your job. I have obviously been running my classes so far this week, and for the most part, kids have been absolutely amazing, but I do have a small demographic of kids who just haven't done the things that they need to do. I have some kids that haven't checked in, and I know some kids are going to fall behind. Guys, this way of doing school is going to be way harder for you if you're not all in every day. We have a job to do as teachers as far as not only coming up with a curriculum that is going to cover the things that we are no longer able to cover because we don't have school there, but we also have to hold you accountable. So there are certain things that we have out there that are partially to make sure that you are doing your job daily, and that is a state requirement. We need to make sure that we hit minimum numbers of days so you're not here during the summer. So if you're one of those kids it's like, I'll just get to it on Friday and skip an entire week, that's absolutely positively not acceptable. And of course you are going to sink as we go on. So make sure every day you get up and do your job. You should not be sleeping in. You should not be just waiting till 3 o'clock, checking all your stuff late. You should be getting to bed the same time that you always have. Wake up, make sure you check in by 7:20, 7:30 for those of you who are in North Campus, and start working from there. You have way more time than you'll actually need. When you think about all the stuff we've removed from our school schedule, whether it be passing periods, whether it be just teachers talking to you about average stuff during the day, none of that's there anymore. No study halls. So the actual time in your class is technically much longer, giving you the opportunity to get those things done, but only if you check in and get it done. Now, of course, that being said, I've had so many of my kids and my athletes have checked in. They're able to get a lot of their stuff done by 12, by noon, because they wake up and they pound and they get that stuff done, and then they're able to do some of the other things that they want to do with their day. Approach it like that, and I think you're going to be very successful. Next up, I want to talk about kind of where your heads are at. I've certainly had some conversations with my varsity athletes, and I think this discussion here really has a lot to do more with returning and varsity athletes. I mean, obviously we have a massive team, so some of you may be looking at this recording and thinking to yourself, I haven't thought at all about track during this time off, and that may be true, but you have to understand and recognize that some of us are in very different positions. We have people on this team where track is their whole life. This is what they have been doing since we left the state championship last year. So hope is something that I think is an extremely important thing to hold on to in a time like this. Now, I'd love to say to you that if you work really hard, and a lot of times we talk about that, if you work really hard, you're going to have success no matter what it is. Everything's going to be great. In this particular case, we can't say that. We don't know what is technically going to happen with all these shutdowns. We don't know. What we do know is that the WIAA and even UW-La Crosse, who runs our state championship, they're going to do everything they can to make sure this happens. And I'm not just saying that. I have made the phone calls. Yesterday I talked with the state meet director for over a half hour. We talked about all of the different possible scenarios for how a modified or how a changed state championship could actually work. UW-La Crosse actually has their track scheduled to be resurfaced this summer, and that doesn't happen until July 1st, but they've already put the bug in their ear that they may be pushing that back. So what that means is already the WIA is looking at the potential of maybe even running a state championship in July. Again, we don't know that we're going to have an all clear for people to be in groups or anything by that particular time, but we know that it is possible. We do know that at some point we will run, we will race again. So the reason I bring that up is because there are, obviously there's a lot of guys that are out there working right now and doing an amazing job. I've been following the images. I've seen some of our guys have been working out in smaller groups, and it's been amazing. But I did have the question asked by one of my varsity athletes yesterday, am I doing this all for nothing? Senior athlete. And I'd love to be able to say that, no, don't worry, this is all going to be magical. But I can't say that. On the same token, though, if it were me in that position, there is no possible way that I wouldn't do everything I possibly could in case that opportunity presented itself. That, and imagine how sad and how depressing it would be for our seniors if we decided on this particular date that there is no chance and they're just done. Especially those guys who aren't necessarily going on to college to compete. All that time that they've put in for these 4 years leading up to here would be for naught. So I personally would rather take the risk, not necessarily the risk, but I would rather look at it as it might happen. And if it does happen where, let's say we have a state championship and maybe we only have 2 weeks of track for this entire season, which by the way is probably about what we would need, 2 to 3 weeks. The WIA would require us to have 4 competitions before we'd be allowed into an actual competition series for regional and sectional. But again, that stuff could change and be updated. But if it were me, I'd want to be ready. And I would look at this as an incredible opportunity. If I know that my school day takes me less time than it normally does, and now I can make sure that I've got every bit of warm-up, every bit of meal prep, every bit of weight type of workout, whether it be body weight or actual physical weights in someone's basement, whatever it is, I would make sure that I'm ready for that. That's the kind of person I am, and I know for a lot of our varsity guys, that's the kind of people you are. Now, speaking to some of my freshmen, some of my new kids that are looking at this, do you want to bang your head against the wall and have the potential of not having a season? Well, Many of you are multi-sport athletes, whether you're a cross-country runner or you're a football player or whatever that may be. Fall and next year is going to happen. This virus is going to pass. It is not going to be with us forever. If you take everything off and just stop cold turkey, you're going to be going into your next season in a completely different spot than what you're used to, because you're used to having this training of some sort. So why would you do that to yourself? And the last thing, of course, would be the fact that everybody's cooped up in their house right now. I know me personally, I'm waking up and I'm working out. Actually, I'm doing my lessons, my agendas, and everything at about 5 o'clock in the morning. I get all that stuff posted, and then that's when I go and I work out. I'm going to be personally in much better shape after this whole lockdown is done than after. Why? What am I working out for? I just feel better. Everybody feels better, and you guys know it. Those of you who have worked hard before towards that common goal, even if you don't get on the track and race, there is a feeling about being physically fit that is unmatched. So keep pushing, keep striving for that, and let's keep that hope alive that perhaps there is a championship and that we are involved in it. Next up is the seriousness of what we're facing. If you are watching news, and some of us are kind of in that 24-hour news cycle, I certainly do, because that's part of what I do as a social studies teacher. I watch every station there is. I read a million articles. It's one of the reasons I get up before 5 o'clock every morning, is to scan to see what's going on. So I've heard and seen every version of what people think may or may not happen with this particular outbreak. And the one thing that I can tell you is that it is real. This is a real outbreak. There are going to be many, many, many people that are going to get sick with this. And we do know that the number one way to avoid that is to spread ourselves out and avoid contact. So what does that have to do with this discussion? Well, the thing is, we can't have, as you guys know by now, we cannot have organized practices, especially out on the track. It just can't happen. Can you get in a very small group of people? You could. Legally you can. We are not saying that that is something that you should do. That is something that families need to decide whether or not they want to do. If you don't feel comfortable being around 3 people running around in your neighborhood, then absolutely don't do it. And when I say you, I'm not even talking about just my athletes, but if mom and dad don't feel like that's a comfortable thing, then absolutely positively on your own. Now, on your own is fine. If you have a good work ethic, you can get everything that we need to have done on your own easily. Most of our kids in this district live in some type of neighborhood. There is plenty of grass and plenty of road space for you to do all the workouts that we have outlined for you. You can take any distance that we have made and you can turn it into a time. It's not hard to do. Weight room activities, same thing. Obviously, it'd be great if you had a weight room, if you had access to that. This is the time where those those of you who have those basement weight rooms can really crank out something. But at the same token, you can do plenty of body weight exercise. Ask mom and dad about their P90X workouts. Trust me, they will absolutely wreck you. And if you do it right, the way we have proposed it in our workouts, at least for our sprinters, jumpers, hurdlers, it will actually be productive. Now, obviously, you can do any kind of workout and just get yourself tired. That's not necessarily going to get you ready for speed, strength, power type events. But if you look at it the way we had prescribed it in our workouts, you will be more than okay. And I would highly encourage you. I will obviously be updating those workouts as we go. I will be finding some more new and creative different things to do, especially for those of you who are stuck on those body weight things. But have that be that thing in your day that you look forward to. Relish the fact that you still have that opportunity. There are certainly some people, when you look at some of these massive cities that are getting shut down, where they don't even have the space to do any of that. They can't leave an apartment to run around the house or run down the road. So let's look at the things that we have that are good and build on that and be ready in the best possible way that we can. Now, last but not least, I guess I would just leave you with the thought that this could be looked at as a tremendous opportunity for us to do some things that we haven't. Reconnect with your family. I know that my family, we've watched movies at night. For some reason, we've been together and we've had more together time in this last week than we probably have had in the last several months, just because of the situation. make that a good thing. Be a good sibling, be a good